Welcome to the Media Roundtable, special edition. Why is this so special? Why is this night different than all other nights? Because it's our 10 anniversary. 10, of course, is the symbol for a 10-year anniversary and symbolizes strength and resilience. And that's what we're celebrating here at Oxford Road. We're celebrating 10 years in the game of podcast and audio. I am your host, Dan Granger, and today we're going to step into the way back machine and travel through time to look at how the industry and the people we've worked with most closely have changed in the last decade of audio. I'm joined by what I like to call the originals. These are the folks that helped transform the landscape of the audio industry and really poured the foundation of what has become our agency, Oxford Road. These four people have been through all of it, and they've been on some very difficult and rewarding journeys with me in the last 10 years. And really, I mean, every one of them risked everything to dive headfirst into an industry at a time when most people had never even heard of it, and which it had only really recently begun to exist. And today have led the company to become the largest independent buyer of audio media in the world, at least as far as we're aware. 10 years later, the band is still together and they're live to talk about it. So here we are. We have Stu Redwine, our Vice President of Creative Services at Oxford Road. Welcome, Stu.
Happy to be here. I've been waiting for this for 10 years. So it's
happy anniversary.
Great.
Happy anniversary. We have Miranda Romano, Vice President of Media at Oxford Road.
Well,
happy anniversary.
Happy
Miranda.
anniversary.
Welcome. We have Kyle Jelinek, Oxford Road's uncle, is here. Welcome, Kyle. Happy anniversary to you.
I don't know. The uncle, I don't know. I'm not part of the core family. I'm like the periphery, the uncle that shows up. Yeah. Okay. I'll take uncle.
Well, wait a minute. How about
Hold
this?
on.
But Miranda would be like the mother of Oxford Road. Like, she really started. I mean, she was the first one here, right? So you would technically be like her brother in that scenario. I think we're siblings at this point.
Okay.
But what has become, this is your line of descendants.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
take-
uncle
sure.
to the next generation.
Can you call me Funkle? I want to be the fun uncle. I'm the Funkle.
You've always been the Funkle.
Thank you.
Without a doubt. We also have Gary Brown. He's the mayor of Oxford Road and has been so for many years. He was also here before the beginning. So, guys, welcome to Media Roundtable Anniversary Edition. Thank you, and congratulations on our 10 anniversary. Can you believe it? Can you believe we made 10?
It's amazing.
Congratulations to you.
All
Dan.
ours.
And
Yeah,
thank
congratulations. Happy anniversary, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
On one
Thank
side,
you.
on one hand, it feels like 25. On the other, it feels like 2. Like it feels like
Yes,
yesterday.
Exactly what you mean.
We were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I brought a makeshift hanky here with me because I don't know how real things are going to get in
that's
this
a good
conversation.
call.
But like as I said, this might be the anniversary or the episode where we all cry.
You're right.
But I just got to tell you guys, and I hope this isn't some unconscious form of like manipulation, but this is a lot more fun because you guys are here. If you guys weren't here right now, I don't even know if I'd be excited, right? But like the fact that like we've all been through something together, right? And we know, and there's things that we'll never be able to explain, but we all know and feel and have connected through, and that we're still doing it. And just the fact that every one of you are thriving in what you do, and it's easy because then our relationship that I think has like birthed out of the work, it's just it takes the pressure off of it, when everybody's doing so well and we have so much shared history. It's really special to be here with you guys. So thank you. Let's go back a little bit. Should we go back? Let's start with Kyle. Kyle. Let's put Kyle in the hot seat. Kyle, in the beginning, what was here? Like, what was the audio industry 10 years ago when you looked around?
Well, I mean, I always say that David Ogilvy got me this job. In a way, I was working at Salem Communications for 11 years, and just kind of seeing the shift. I was obsessed with podcasting. I saw what was going on in that space, really digging it, but I was trying to poach advertisers from KFI, which is where Dan was working at the time. And I actually resurfaced this email that I reached out to Dan when he was
careful.
I sent this to Dan. Hey man, my name's Kyle Jelinek. I'm over here at I hate this. I'm cringing now, but the Tidy But Mighty Fish 95.9. I'll do it in radio voice. I read across your site, was really digging your style. Just wanted to let you know. Basically, I was trying to steal advertisers from KFI, and Dan had a website for himself as he sold KFI that
very humble.
Ranked better than KFI's did organically. And I'm like, this guy is crushing life. I just need to be a part of whatever's going on. I just reached out and said hi. And David Ogilvy quote caught Dan's attention. And I don't know, 10 years later, I'm sitting here and running accounts. It's wonderful.
Well, and we shared a fondness over Roy Williams, the Wizard of Ads. And if you're in the business and you want to like read the greats, you got to know Roy Williams. And he had written the Wizard of Ads trilogy. And I remember you referring to him as the Wizzo. And I'm like, wow, he's like, he's got abbreviations for the name and everything. This guy's in the club. Because like Stu and I have been to Texas. We have been to that man's seminars. We have done the work. And so the fact that you already had that going, there was a lot of kindred spirit stuff happening at that time. It was preordained. It was a touched moment. No question.
Preordained.
Yeah. So what did you see shifting, and like what made you want to take the plunge and having a family and everything?
Well, there's two things. Number one was I saw this shift in the podcast space. I found myself digging more and more into podcasts, and where I was in radio, like I was talking to executives and saying like, what are we doing with this? Can we take some of the shows we have and turn those into podcasts? There's something really interesting going on here. And it was all old guard, like, nah, these kids are having fun. That's crazy. And when you reached out to me and said, like, I'm starting a podcast agency, I actually started writing copy for one of Dan's old clients for the Adam Carolla show, which I was listening to religiously. And so my first gig at Oxford Road was writing freelance copy for the Adam Carolla show for eFax or eVoice. I forget which one. They're the same major company. But bottom line is I started doing that. I'm like, this is way better. And this is where the industry's headed.
See, Kyle, that's why I've been trying to get you to come over to creative the whole time.
Not going to
happen. First gig was...
Someday.
So by the way, speaking of old emails, Kyle sent one of those 10-year-old emails, and one of them says, like, yeah, I don't work with the creative team. I like to do it myself. I'm like, oh.
At least he stayed the same.
I found it way better to just do it myself. Yeah. Sometimes
he's been circumventing other departments for decades.
But one thing, Dan told me, you'll never have to do another like auto dealer remotes, and I just signed on the dotted line. That was it. I was
ready. You had to throw away the inflatable gorilla.
Inflatable gorilla was gone. The crazy little sock thing that floats around.
The wind sock or whatever. Yeah.
So,
okay.
I never look back.
Let's switch to Downtown Gary Brown, shall we? Which was, by the way, that was his website. You had the Downtown Gary Brown website, correct?
I own that. I own Gary's G-Rides.
G-Rides.
I just got the renewal the other day. I'm still paying for it after all these years.
And you're the host of the Brown Lounge, which, as I understand, was picked up by Netflix recently.
And it's exciting because it's taken me 10 years to actually launch the podcast, and now we have a name, a direction, and a publisher to release it. This next 10 years is going to be so exciting for a bunch of reasons.
Gary, how did this happen? How did Oxford Road happen?
A couple of things. I mean, similar to what Kyle was saying, Dan was doing the same thing at Clear Channel, talking to the market president.
In a way better way, by the way. I just want to...
hold on. This is not a setup for me, though. This is what we were doing. So remember, we had the tribe.
There was like a perfect storm brewing. It takes a second for the tornado to start, but all the elements were in place. Miranda came on board 2011. Dollar Shave Club came up. We started talking to those guys. We started working with Jess at J2. Met with Mike Dubin at the Science Incubator. Started talking to Arlen and Jay at Hulu. And Dan met Carolla. So we started placing ads on his show. Dan saw this bigger thing, and we started talking to the executives at Clear Channel. Hey, I think you guys should invest in this. This is the future. And they kind of dismissed it. And we would travel up to the Bay Area all the time for meetings. We were already meeting with these disruptive tech companies. And I remember we met with John Lovitz, we met with Tom Green, we're talking to Corolla, Bill Burr, Joey Diaz.
It was all the comedians, wasn't it? They were really the ones that brought recognizability to the platform, I think.
Right. And they all had their podcasts. And Dan and Miranda and I, we were kicking around the idea of like, okay, do we start an agency and represent the clients? Or do we start a network and represent the talent? And there was one trip, Dan and I were flying up to San Francisco. I don't know if it was for the day or an overnight thing, but there was a press release that came out that said Norm Pattis, Kit Gray, a couple other radio executives and legends built this network, Podcast One, and anchored it around Adam Carolla. And this is well before the Serials and the Spotifys and the Joe Rogans and all that stuff. This is a big move. And I remember Dan he was frustrated, he was mad, but there was this opportunity and it kind of told us like, all right, we're going to the agency route. And we just were lucky enough to have people that trusted us with the crew of companies we talked about before, and then people we were working with outside of Clear Channel with Chris and Kyle and Stu. And it was like the perfect storm, really.
So Miranda, you joined. So Gary and I started working together in 2010, and we were cold calling and, doing the campaigns in radio. And then we needed, like, Gary was always the front of the, like, tip of the spear guy that was like kicking down doors. And then he got so proficient at it that it was like, okay, we're a little overwhelmed by the work that we're having to do now. We needed like some operational backbone. Yeah. And we started working together in January 2011? Is that when that happened? Right. Okay. So we're working together for 2 years. Flash forward to July 4th, 2013, when the company started. Describe that week from your perspective, because really you were the first one to go.
It was me. And I wish I could. It was all a blur. I think we were moonlighting, right? And I went from, 15 plus hour days to working 15 plus hour days. So that didn't change. But I think for me, it was a huge relief to finally be able to let go of Clear Channel, because up until that point, I'd be sitting there working with 2 different computers at my desk, 2 different email addresses, be running to the stairwell to take certain phone calls in and out of meetings from different companies. And so it just was really nice to, as much as I loved working at, what was then Clear Channel and the people and everyone, it was great to use those 15 plus hour days just to focus on building one thing.
Well, and it was hard because we didn't raise any money. We didn't ask for outside help. We just truly built this out of our trunk.
Bootstrapped.
Yeah, completely. So we were building a business while maintaining, we were a team inside of Clear Channel, what is now iHeart. And, we were kind of incubating an agency within the company, and they give us a lot of flexibility. And so Gary and Miranda and me were working on that business. And we were really conscientious about not violating any employment agreement which
is stressful in and of itself.
It was super stressful because we didn't know. And so we were getting, we're cold calling the people that had any type of audience in podcasts. Gary got most of them. He technically Gary built the first network just through calling managers, Jay Moore's manager, Mark Maron's manager, just tracking people down and being like, hey, can we put spots in your show? And they're like, what are spots? And we're like, what's your show? And and there was no measurement, there was no ratings or anything. And, but we were really careful about it. And so what we started doing was we got the shows to pay us referral fees when we would place buys on their network so that we didn't have a conflict with our employer. And we disclosed it to them, but we didn't know. And when you were working inside of a media company and as a sales team, when you leave, that can create a lot of conflict. So we were looking over our shoulder, okay, we're kind of seeing that this thing's pulling us, right? And we think we're going to have to go. And when we made that decision, it was sort of we were looking over our shoulder, are they going to kick us out? When we tell them, are they going to like shut down our computers and walk us out of the building? Now, to their credit, it didn't have to go down like that, but we thought it might, and we were prepared for that scenario.
Are we telling that story?
No, I don't know if we're going to.
There was multiple instances more.
Well, I don't know what statute of limitations is, but but
Miranda and I are waiting in purgatory for you to come out of these meetings. And we're just like, well, does our cell phone still work? Okay.
Do we still have a job, a real job?
Well, because we had seen people do that move where they're like, oh, we're going to go launch an agency. And then like communication ended, right? Like it would. Yeah. And that's not what happened. And, you know, Jeff Thomas, Darren McMillan, Greg Ashlock, these guys were professionals. They were supportive. They just wanted to be very collaborative about the process. And we figured out an off-ramp that allowed us to really make this agency legitimate. Now, to be fair, we already had a master service agreement with Hulu before we technically had an ad agency, which was kind of amazing. But that was an indicator. Maybe it was time to jump. But like, we didn't know it was going to happen, but they were very cool and helped us with the transition. And I think really partnered with us to help us launch. And I think but it was conflicting, right? I think we all had a lot of consternation, and it was like, we were doing the job of building starting a business where there's like legal documents and, you know, and like I wrote the full business plan and everything like that. And then there's the job that we had, which was more than full time. And then there was servicing all the agency clients that were like the future of the business. And we were doing all that at the same time. So it was nice to be able to be like, okay, now we can just focus and try to figure out what we're doing here and what it means to run a company. But Miranda, you came before, like as part of our agreement, you were allowed to go start at the agency full time before Gary and I were. And we actually had to stay back longer than you did, which is kind of crazy.
Yes.
So I guess you're really the founder of Oxford Road. I've been stealing
you can take the
title the whole time.
You can take
I remember that week.
Miranda's
calling, hey, Gary, I need J2's traffic for KFI. Like,
all of a sudden I'm harassing you for things.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So and Miranda, from an operational standpoint, like you look at the business now and the industry is so different. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that was what's a podcast when we started. Like we were explaining it to people all the time. How is the business different in the way you were experiencing it for placing media?
It might sound crazy. It was a lot more simple. It was easy. We were buying baked in reads. That was it. They were, 60 seconds, mostly longer. It wasn't like, is it dynamic? Is it baked in? Is it baked in? But they strip it out. And now we've got to worry about, our ad running next to 9 other ads. So it was, those were better days. So now we're dealing with a lot more complexity, a lot more kitchen.
And is all the extra complexity because it allows us to do different things? Is that better or worse for the advertisers?
I think both. I think better in terms of, offering us different ways to optimize the media.
Mm-hmm.
But also worse because the space is just, on certain podcasts, certain publishers, they just jam in the ads and we can't buy host reads with them anymore because they're ineffective, because the 9 ads, all the, the brand spots, it has devalued host reads.
Yeah. Well,
a
lot of it's shifted. Okay.
I would say like the network's like ability to like jump in and like dive in with the clients and really try to do what they can.
Correct.
Has changed.
It's another
10 years ago.
Not with all networks. I'll say it's not with all publishers, but
it used to be, gosh, 10 years ago, we'd buy something on Adam Carolla and then I'd be at his recording studio, hanging out with his cars, recording with the client there. Like they're putting blockades in place for that, and I think that's actually wise. But it used basically,
but it was like a radio station, right? Like what the way that started, right? Like it was much more pirate radio, and it was like I feel like it was a revolution that was happening because the internet brought down all of the barriers to entry in mass communication. The world we started working in was one where the FCC decided how many streams of audio you could listen to, and it wasn't very many. And because of the nature of those dynamics, they really could only talk about so many topics because you couldn't really get into niche content. So whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you're into, like you couldn't find that through audio. And so Adam Curry, MTV VJ, figures out you can slide the spoken word into an iPod by getting in like the RSS feed. And that's about as technical as I'm going to try to get. This opened up a whole new thing. And at first it was all hobbyists and gamers, and then comedians were like, oh, a free speech platform where I don't have to worry about the, 7 deadly words or whatever. And it was free and it was open and you could actually have meaningful dialogues about anything. And so it had a lot of vitality, and it was more than just like a corporate product that got mass produced and fed to everybody in a very homogenized way. It was open, it was free. And I think we saw a lot of freedom there too. So we opened the doors, and Gary, you mentioned that we had a number of kind of friends that were helping us along at the beginning. One of those was Stu Redwine,
yes.
who I had known, I think, for a little while before. Stu, how do you explain your entrance into Oxford Road?
Well, it always starts with this little card, as you guys know. I might as well use it here too as a piece of stagecraft. I was a member of the local 493 out there in St. Louis,
it's legit,
near Kansas City. Yeah. Little did I know back then. So this would be 23, whatever years ago. I was working on sets for performance marketing sets. And as I'm working on that stuff, I remember looking around and seeing that all the guys that I was moving lights and stands, that all the guys that are like twice my age are still moving the same heavy lights and stands. And I like look out of the corner and there's always somebody there working on a laptop, and all they're having to move is their fingers. I was like, I need to figure out how to be one of these people. So I started working in that direction. Obviously, like you mentioned, we knew each other. You had determined that there's gold in them there hills out here in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was basically making a choice between making it happen in Kansas City or giving it a shot out here in LA. Made that move. Was working with a lot of people, and you started Oxford Road and you guys were doing your thing, and it just kept becoming a bigger and bigger chunk of my time of helping you with the copy or doing video stuff. And like, we were doing everything right in those days. And it was just the decision point of going like, this is a group I've been like adjacent to in those early days. I was kind of thinking it's like Doc Holliday and the Wyatt and the Earp brothers in Tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what if Doc Holliday would have actually gotten sworn in, gotten a badge, and become a lawman?
Mm.
And that's what it was. It was that decision point. It's like, I can keep doing my thing and keep helping with Oxford Road. Or the truth is, and this is where you said it'd get personal. I mean, look, we're all only down here for so long. There's lots of places to work. You're an incredible person. Everybody on this call and everybody at the organization could say that. This is an incredible organization.
You're trying to make the tears happen too early, Steve. Come on.
I wear my heart on my sleeve, baby.
I agree with you, though. No,
you know that.
That's why we're all here.
Look, man, it's Michael Scott. Business is always personal. It's like this. I can't imagine a better group. I can't imagine a better place to be. And it's like, it's been 10 years. We're going to blink. It's going to have been 20. And I get all, like when we sang the Oxford Road song, I want to take my horse to the Oxford Road and scale till I'm a unicorn, Kyle.
Yeah.
I go forward into my mind. We're going to be in our 60s and we are going to long for those days. We're going to long for 2014. We're going to long for 2016 when we were all in it together all the time. But to get back to your question, I saw a glimpse of that. I knew what Oxford Road was made of. There's lots of different places to go, lots of different people to work with. And it's like, I'm committing. I'm going in here.
Stu, what was like your what was your perspective of Oxford? I know you were working with us and you're close with Dan, but what was your perspective from an outsider about what we were trying to do?
It was so exciting because it was different, because I'd come up in such traditional stuff. So like, that's what was so cool. It's like, not only is it this dynamic group of people that are like a bunch of ninja assassins. Remember I gave you guys, I think it was Dan, Miranda, and Gary, the little ninja dolls.
Yeah, I got
we did an audio lyrics video. There it is.
Wow.
That's probably from 2011. That's probably from 2011. That's why.
Look at that.
Ninjas.
Bless you guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
Where's
Gary,
yours,
that's what I
Dan?
saw. It's an X factor, and we all know it. It's something that's different, and so it's like I have to be a part of this.
So, and I think it was interesting because with Kyle, Miranda, and Gary, like I have to be thoughtful about being a business leader first before like letting my personal preferences or like letting my guard down too much with people that work at the company, and things can get weird. And so like I try to stay a little bit guarded. And then over time, like with everything we've been through, it's like we're way past all that. You guys know me and all my stuff. I know you and all your stuff. And like we're kind of through that. And so like the authentic relationship piece was able to grow from that. And we're family now, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't say, oh, company is family. I actually don't believe that. It's not family. It's performance based. But I think when you look at the totality of everything that we have experienced together and what you guys are at this company, we're forever bonded through that, right? And so it's different with Stu. Stu's the first person I met when I moved to California in 2001, and we had a deep friendship where I had gone to the doctor and he was telling me about my bad cholesterol was really high, and I'm okay right now, but the doctor was like, he's like, he basically said, if you don't get your cholesterol under control, you're gonna die. And I told Stu about it. He's like, not on my watch. And it was right when he had moved back to California, and he started coming over and running 6 miles with me at 5 a.m. every day.
I remember that.
And on those runs, I was talking about what we were trying to put together. And are we going to be a content company? Or are we going to be an advertising company? Like, what is Oxford Road? What should we call it? And stuff like that. He's workshopping with me the whole time behind the scenes. And then when we started doing projects together, I stayed very disconnected from that because I didn't want to kind of break the fourth wall. I didn't want to like have the complexity of like having to be in a hierarchical relationship with a friend that started as a friend. And so like Stu had to report to other people. Like somebody had to make the case to me. Scott, our managing director at the time, was like, we need to hire Stu full time. I'm like, well, he can't report to me. I'm too close with him. It won't work. And so he is actually the one that made the official hire. And then over time, things changed, things evolved. And like, we've learned how to manage that so we could be friends and be working shoulder to shoulder together. And it's been a process, but like, look, 10 years, it's unbelievable. So, okay, let's go back to the industry for a second. So like we started in 2013 and 2014 is when Serial happened. And I feel like that was when all of a sudden people you knew had heard of what a podcast was and you didn't have to explain to them, and they thought it was cool. And like everybody started buzzing and like podcast movement started coming up, and it's like, oh, this is actually turning into an industry. People are paying attention to this. When did you guys realize that we were sitting on a rocket ship?
Before we started.
Yeah.
Before Oxford Road started, 2011 and 12. I mean, we had a plan.
Yeah.
We knew what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, when we were going to do it. And it continued. The trajectory continued. But I think,
part of my job to bridge the gap between what Oxford Road is now and what was going on in the incubation period, I was running some of the radio accounts that you had over at iHeart. So that was fun. I had a bunch of like tax resolution companies, Belizean real estate companies that I would work with, a bunch of companies that we don't currently work with, but we would get some of them onto podcasts. And what I found was like the performance on the podcast was tenfold what we saw on some of the other things that they had been doing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not only really cool and exciting, but it works really well for the companies. And that's what really kind of changed, not even changed my mind, but it reinforced what I already knew to be true. It was like, oh, this shit actually works.
I guess I never really thought of it that way, but if I were to distill it down from my view, I think that's the whole thing is like the ads worked really well on podcasts. And, when we could compare it, when we started lining them up with the traditional stuff that we had been doing, there was nothing to compare. There was no comparison. And so, I had been taking stabs at this industry since 2006, trying to find a way in, and like developed talent that didn't really turn into anything, but we were working on it, and I had done a podcast and like trying to come from at the industry from all different angles. And I felt like we listened to the market, and what the market said was there is a real opportunity for brands to be successful at growing their business here. And the results speak for themselves. And so I think, when we came on, it was like, we talked about the revolution that was happening in audio, where you could now meet with people that were like you from anywhere in the world. And so kind of those tribes coming together and free speech. But like the other revolution that was happening was in tech. It was in the Silicon Valley, where Gary and I had been spending years taking trips up there and trying to learn their language and what kinds of things were important to them, and dealing with things like attribution before that was really a term that everybody used. We were having to solve that problem to get those companies onto radio stations. But like, when we started the company, it was novel to ship people razor blades in a box at their house. Like stuff that everybody does on Amazon every day was not something that you could do at that time. And so it was like, hey, we can send a package of food to your house. Can you believe it? We can sell. Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I think culturally too, though, there was a shift, because these guys at Hulu and Dollar Shave Club, the traditional radio salesperson showed up in a formal suit. And these guys specifically told us, hey, when you come back, do not wear a suit. We don't want you to wear suits anymore. And Dan and I were like, we don't want to ever wear suits again.
All right, so tell me if you've ever heard of any of these companies. Indeed, Shopify, NetSuite, Headspace, Quip, Theragun, Postmates. I'm not only the host of the Media Roundtable, but also CEO of a company called Oxford Road, and we are the world's leading independently owned and operated audio ad agency. And what that means is that we help great companies, many that you have probably heard of on some of the other podcasts that you listen to. We help them test and scale campaigns in audio channels, with podcast being one of those leading channels. Some of the work that we do includes media planning and buying, as well as analytics, attribution, and insights. And we also have a very special way that we deal with creative and copy generation. We have our own proprietary process called Audiolytics that allows us to score ads for their persuasiveness. If you're looking to be involved in audio and you want a partner that can help work with you to make sure that you achieve unprecedented ROI and massive scale, you should get in touch with us at Oxford Road. And by the way, the only reason that we're able to do the work of the Media Roundtable is because we have a great team at Oxford Road that supports us and makes it possible. So, what we're doing is not just a podcast, but we're really trying to help brands live out their values and balance that with their business objectives, which is an increasingly hard thing to do in this world of misinformation and malice that's infecting so much of our media. But at Oxford Road, we don't want to just broker this stuff. We want to impact the industry for good. We want to raise the bar on what gets created. And Oxford Road is helping make that possible through the Media Roundtable. So if you're somebody that's interested in working with an ad agency or a partner on this type of work for your advertising campaigns, go to oxfordroad.com. It's easy to spell. And get in touch with us, or at least just sign up for our free newsletter, The Influencer. That's oxfordroad.com.
Yeah, there was like all this money and opportunity. And I can just remember when we were talking with those tech companies where they were our age and younger, much younger, like there's all these dollars available that you could deploy in audio if one wanted to, but they would say things like, we'd even mention radio. And it just stuck in my head. I remember one guy's like, does anybody even listen to the radio anymore? Yeah. It's like radio is antiquated technology, but they'd try out this new cool, sexy thing that's serial. Now everybody knows what it is. oh, they'll try that podcast thing. You know, it was just like that allowed us to be so positioned to get into that community. And like you're saying, when all that stuff was novel.
So what happened was we were in the right place at the right time, and I think made the right decision. And we got to ride two waves that were cresting at the same time. One of them was the D2C revolution, where VC money was chasing all these companies that needed to scale fast. Their whole job was to get customers as quick as they could. And you could then go to them and go, hey, do you want to advertise on a radio station with a personality you've never heard of and make a $300,000 6-month commitment to do a test? Or would you like Alec Baldwin to read your ad on Here's the Thing through NPR, and there's no talent fee, and you don't have to talk to CAA, and the whole media schedule is $10,000? And it was like, the value was bananas. And so being in that place at the center of that at the same time, it was like we couldn't help but explode. And so we went from when we started to, let's say, 2015, 2 years later, we had gone from, I want to say, like 3 or 4 of us to like 40. And we were on the Inc. 500, and Inc. 500 measures your growth on a 3-year period. We got it to number 398 based on 2 years of growth, which means we were growing about a third faster than most of the companies that were on that list. No outside funding. So we were white hot. We had a problem where we couldn't walk out of a meeting without getting business thrown at us. And there was a moment there where I think we might have gotten a little too hot, too fast for our own good. In fact, Kyle, when you think about 2015, because you were really, you had about 17 clients probably that you were managing personally.
It was 25, I think, at the time.
25 at the time. Yeah, there was like, it was like, oh, everybody else is overwhelmed. Okay, Kyle's going to have to work with this one. We don't do that anymore, of course.
Oh,
but
never.
At the time.
Yeah. No, he's down to like 20.
All right, this part's getting clipped.
Yeah, we don't want our clients
never change.
Kyle's got a lean balance of 15 clients.
Yeah.
No, I only have like 5 now. It's amazing. So yes.
We're gonna edit out this section.
Yeah.
So Kyle, back to you.
Yeah.
So Kyle, 2015, like, what's going on? Are we even a podcast agency? What are we at that time, and what's going on in the world?
There was a lot going on. We had, again, people coming to us. I remember a wonderful time in which, again, kind of taking ownership and just doing something probably insane. I had Stu come into the office one day. We were recording a TV ad in the office. And
is this the one with the donkey?
No, that was later.
No.
That was later. Stu and I, we scheduled a whole recording studio session in our office, and you didn't even know it was happening. And you're like, wait, what the hell's going on? Oh, this is for a company.
We're shooting
it's
a TV
going to go live
commercial
next week. It's going to go live next week. It was crazy. And things were crazy. We had a client that came into us with a 6-figure test on television, which we had done some TV. We were competent, but like we hadn't fully scaled television. So we had a team. We did a 6-figure test.
We were all selling radio 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we've got real TV companies or real brands advertising on television with us. And by the way, at the time, there were quarters where we had more business running through this agency on TV than we did on audio.
Yeah. And we had a client that did a 6-figure test, and then, hey, that worked really well. Let's do 8 figures in Q4. And I almost
how much was that budget? Without saying any names.
I think it's $25 million that we had to come up with in the quarter.
Yeah, that week it was like the most viewed television. It was the most aired television commercial one broadcast week. Remember? Because we saw that it was that it was that Kyle and I are doing these massive television campaigns where it's him and me literally in Hollywood in a house that we're paying somebody. It's like him, me, a cameraman, and some local actors cranking out spots.
It was scrappy, but it was amazing.
It was amazing.
we'd go into a house and Stu had it all worked out, and seeing Stu on a set is like the best thing in the world. If you ever have a chance to see Stu on set of a TV shoot, it is the best thing. But yeah, we'd go rent out houses in Hollywood, shoot a spot, and we'd have it trafficked in 3 days and out to the masses and just doing it. It was crazy.
Yeah. So then what happened?
But I mean, no, I was just, what I really admired at that time was like, again, like in the trenches. And I remember doing the overnight meetings, and like Dan would be there, and it's 2 a.m. and Dan's pacing around writing on a whiteboard, and Stu's out there throwing out ideas at 4:30. I mean, when you're in the trenches and stuff like this, but you have like the top echelon of the company, like doing it with you, it's all right. We can do it. We can do it.
And we had some, I think we had some good policies that helped govern our decisions at that time. Like, what time of night was it that we had to prank phone call Chris mandatory?
I think it was anytime after midnight.
Was it midnight? Was that the cutoff? If we're working after midnight,
Chris Metzer got a prank call. Yeah.
Obligatory prank phone call to Chris.
Absolutely. Whomever was working after midnight, whatever group was working, you had to prank call him.
Yeah, and Chris was just our CFO, CTO, chief legal counsel, HR,
head of analytics.
He was our analytics team for a time, wasn't he?
Point.
Yeah,
he was kind of everything.
He did a lot.
We all
Chris
were.
did a lot. Yeah, everybody was.
We all were a lot of things, and I've got them all downstairs. I kept, for some reason, parking tickets from the WeWork parking structure because I would see if I could hit 24 hours. On a parking time. And it was like, I have so many of them that I was there for 19 hours, 17 hours, 18 hours, 16. Like Miranda, you were talking about those long days. No, it's what we took. No, but that's what this group has shared.
Like, I remember I was so tired. I ran through the parking, the gate. I bolted through it.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say,
I said, screw the tickets.
It's 2013. It's 2013 on Halloween. I've got 2 young daughters. I'm about to take trick or treating, and we go all out for Halloween. So I'm in a sheep costume with tights and wool all around me. It's an incredible. My wife is the best at really anything artistic, but she made me a sheep. I was a sheep, and Miranda calls me. Not in a good place. And I'm like, did you kill someone? Like, what happened? And I thought I was going to need to get in the car in my sheep costume and drive down to Hollywood and bail Miranda out of jail. Which I think probably would have been worth it.
My car just kept going into the middle of the street.
Yeah, you were sleepy. We were working a lot. But like, okay, so let's flash forward a little bit. So I'll just summarize. I think where Kyle was describing like that quarter, that last quarter of 2015, I think that's when we realized what it really means to be in business. Like, that's when things got real, because that company kind of went off the grid. I don't know if any part of it was operational 90 days later. And that happens when you're working with tech companies, right? And things can change really fast. One decision maker changes at a company, and all of a sudden, like, you just lost a wheel, on the bike. So we kind of, I think. And what I think one of the lessons for me during that period of time, because we went through a couple of years where we really had to struggle to keep the lights on and to maintain. It wasn't about growing. It was about surviving. Stu says more like losing the wheel on the unicycle. I think that's a better metaphor. And that's what it felt like. And we really had to crawl through a couple of years just to stay alive. And I think if I look in retrospect, like just take an inventory on my contribution to like, what could I have done different? I think we flew a little too close to the sun. And I think that we tried to expand horizontally to other channels too fast. And what was a very hard fought lesson for me to learn, I was very stubborn about this. I didn't want to yield anything. And we had to say, hey, look, we can try to be a generalist agency, or we can really focus on our specialty in audio. And we had to let go of some of those, visions of grandeur that in 24 months, we can do everything for everybody. And we really needed to focus on our core. And then you guys, not only were every one of you, I can point to, you were, I would say, a pillar holding up the business, but also a pillar for me, just psychologically. I think that there was real legitimate trauma that happened in the course of that, going through all of the change and rejection and disappointment. And I think it was one of those seasons where it felt like we couldn't catch a break. We went from being way too hot, way too lucky, to nothing was going right. Like headwind on every single thing we did. Everything was working against us. And it was just enough to hold on. And I think the industry started evolving and getting more serious. We started seeing competition coming from all places. We started seeing things mature. And then in 2018, I felt it was significant when iHeart went and bought the How Stuff Works podcast network, because that was like the first shot across the bow before there was a real consolidation in the industry and big players started coming in. Because we went from, hey, this thing could be an industry and like everybody's independent and everybody's pirate radio and everybody's doing Wild West stuff, to like, no, money's starting to move in. They see it now. And now all of a sudden we didn't have to convince iHeart to care. They were putting their money where their mouth was with this stuff. And that triggered everybody else moving in. And what we saw between that and the pandemic was like, there's no media company that didn't have a podcast. There is no celebrity. There is no professional. There is no politician. Everybody's on podcasts all of a sudden. And we were in the middle of that change. What do you guys feel like changed with us or yourselves that helped us kind of turn and learn the lessons we needed to learn, but really prepare ourselves for the next season of growth that's been able to continue since then?
Well, I think of, that dramatic tale, right, where we just exploded and then we crashed. Like, that taught us so much about ourselves. We went to the limits of great success and then, defeat, truly. And it humbled us and it focused us, just like you're saying. So you just said it. I think it showed us we had to focus and get specialized. We are all things to all people. And this whole crew here, it's like, I've never told any of you guys, but I have these songs I listen to on my running tracks, and I visualize these
you're gonna do this
cinematic scenes that go with them. And I've got one that's the Baltic House Orchestra, whatever, the guy that does the electronic stuff of cinematic songs. It's the Star Wars song. And it's this whole scene where it's Miranda's an X-Wing fighter pilot. It's a Y-Wing fighter pilot. Gary's there. Kyle's there. And we're breaking Dan out of this AT-AT crawler. That's this Imperial thing. And we break him out. And then he uses the Force to pull down a freaking Star Destroyer out of the sky. It's like, that right. Exactly. That's my
Gary's
emotions.
tracking completely.
What it feels like to work at Oxford Road.
Tying that back to your answer, I just want to share that with, like, you guys are with me on my runs. Like, you guys are in my heart. I want you to know that. So, Dan, I think what it did is it forged us together like that, emotionally. And I know you guys feel that too.
Well, and to your point, it really separated, I think, a lot of people self-selected out.
Exactly.
Because they weren't ready to go through it.
Okay, so it solidified us, it hardened us, and softened our hearts to each other. It gave us that. And it taught us a valuable reality lesson that, like, we need to specialize and focus. And then I think each one of us even specialized and focused. Yeah. Like, we were all doing all kinds of jobs, but Miranda got more sharp and focused in her thing. Gary got increasingly more sharp and focused. I got more sharp and focused. So it's like it brought us together as a unit, as a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. And then it taught all of us as individual contributors that we needed to focus on our specialty as the agency was focused on its specialty. That's my take on it, what the lesson was in all of that.
I've never thought about that, Stu, but you're exactly right. Like, I look back at that time, like, I'm putting media plans together. I'm negotiating rates. I'm doing all these things with the networks. I'm writing copy. I'm going rogue and shooting spots with you in a conference room in our office space. And like, since that time, I'm specializing in client management. You have done amazing things in the creative side. Miranda, what you've done with like the media side of things is spectacular. But we have all kind of landed in our specialty and started to grow and flourish there, which I haven't even thought about it that way, but you're 100% correct.
But
I
even
haven't
when
touched
things,
creative because I don't need to, because you're so great at it.
Look at the shirt.
even when things got tough, I knew if tidal waves kept hitting us, we would still be there.
Yeah.
It would resort back to the 5 of us, 4 of us, 3 of us, 6 of us at a WeWork office. I would have had no doubt, but I never was concerned. I mean, I knew we lost some clients, we took some hits, but we grew so fast. Like in a year, we were in the Inc. 500. That's remarkable. So I think we built the house out of bricks rather than just throw this up. Let's see if this
bones were good, baby. The bones are good.
Yeah, I had no doubt we would be there. I was never worried one bit.
Well, and we've had good people helping us throughout, and some of those folks have transitioned to other places. And, frankly, I think the team we have right now is the best in class, hands down. Like, I think there was a time where I think we started good, and I think we started with the right ideas. Like, we were focused on making the ads work always, but I also think we didn't know shit. Like, I didn't know how to run a business. I had never run a business and had to deal with all of the things that go along with that. Kyle, you really hadn't run a team. Now you know how to manage a team. Stu, you have become the most expert in, I believe you are the foremost expert in audio creative, and you're a guy that came from a video background. Miranda, there is nobody that understands this industry as intimately as you do. And like, you came on as an assistant, you grew through the ranks and really took ownership of everything. And additionally, just the whole agency operation. And Gary, you have been fearless and relentless. And, I think, I don't know if anybody has ever been as successful in starting relationships in this industry as you have. Like, you really got us into the world, and even the companies you introduce us to today, they introduce us to other companies, right? And so there's this compounding effect where almost anything we do has Gary's DNA on it, right? And so I feel like we had to go through the refining fire of a lot of rejection and a lot of disappointment. But I do think that that's where we earned our salt. That's where we got our 10,000 hours. That's how we really got to be the best at what we're doing. And now I think we've brought in a lot of people who are also the best. And, like in 2020, we had the British invasion. We had Giles, and then we got some other folks from across the pond, and brought in Stephen as our president. And under his leadership, I feel like we've been able to blend what a global brand should expect from an agency in terms of service and strategy and strategic planning, with the DNA that we've always had, which is that grit, that refusal to fail, that refusal to die. I really think that's probably the reason we are standing here today, is because we just refused to give up on it, because there were so many good reasons to, so many different times. And we just wouldn't do it. And what's amazing is, I felt like I started feeling about 3 or 4 years ago, like, okay, that season's behind us, where it's not our first time doing anything really. There aren't a lot of situations that we haven't seen before. And we have enough momentum and enough capital, relational capital and expertise in the industry that it's like, okay, now I know we're going to have a legacy here. We're going to have a legacy here. And when you guys look around at Oxford Road as it is today, what are you guys most proud of?
I love our team. I think there's a core thread that goes through everybody that's here at Oxford Road now. And it's the fact that they care. And I really do feel like that. Like, we weed people out that they're not in it to win it. I'm really happy with my team, but what really still gets me excited overall, I still get excited when I hear one of our ads in the wild. Like, I can listen to 1,000 air checks and that doesn't mean anything to me. But if I turn on the radio or I turn on Sirius XM or I listen to a podcast and I hear something that we wrote and we did, even if it's not my client, I still get excited. I love it. I love talking to people when they say, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm in podcasts. What podcasts do you listen to? And then they'll tell me, and inevitably I'll say like, oh, well, that's what we do. And list what ads do you know? And then they'll list out all ads. I'm like, well, we did that one we don't do. But like, and then in addition to that is like having a front row seat to the American dream. And I know that we're on like Independence Day week here, but I mean, sitting in Jamie Simonov's like tiny little office in Santa Monica when we're trying to figure out how we're going to expand and talk about the Ring Video doorbell before it was really fully launched everywhere else, or Dollar Shave Club we talked about, like we were a part of that, and they're now ubiquitous names in the industry, and our fingerprints are all over that, and I love it, and that's what keeps me coming every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I think of what I'm most proud of is a huge Stephen King author. So there's a quote from his book, The Stand, and he's talking about when you go through something as a group in this company and those that have joined us and everything, you just come out the other side or you don't, right? Of an experience. You come out the other side or you don't. The place where you made your stand never mattered. All that mattered is that you were still there and still on your feet, that we haven't surrendered, that we haven't quit. And it's not just arbitrary, that this place is real and solid all the way through, because the world is a cruel and hard, unforgiving place. And when we make the ads work here, we have babies get held by other human beings, and we're wiring the brains and the hearts of pre-verbal children so that the outcome of their life and their children and their grandchildren is going to be changed. Like, this is the light side of the force, and we are on it. And we haven't quit. And that's something to be proud of. It's unbelievable.
And Stu, you're bringing up the Koala Corps, of course, which, just to share some context. So, my daughter, my youngest daughter was born with special needs, and she was in Children's Hospital for 6 months, for the first 6 months of her life. And one of the things we saw in the hospital was how many kids didn't have parents that could be around and were just alone in bed without enough volunteers to comfort them. And nurses really can't keep up with that. They're giving medical attention. And so we found a way to, as an organization, create something called the Koala Corps that actually hired somebody. We raised enough money, about $250,000. We raised only because of Oxford Road and our partners who contributed, to be able to make sure that there are enough hands to hold every baby at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And we just did a check-in with them recently. I believe the number of volunteers is 9x what it was when we started raising, or when we hit the threshold for that. And so everything that we do, the better we perform as an agency, the more money we give. And so we know that not only are we doing our job, not only are we serving clients that we believe in, we're also downstream from that helping, what I think are some of the most vulnerable people in our community, children that have nobody to hold them. So that's what Stu's talking about there. Miranda, what about you?
Oh, I never want to follow Stu.
Nobody does.
And it was everything that he just said. But I think for me, what I guess personally, like, I'm most proud that, I started from the bottom. I stayed the course, learned every single aspect of the business, all the in and outs. I'm really proud of our resilience, but not just that, but no matter how busy or hectic or big or small we always put our blood, sweat, and tears into the work that we do for our clients. And that's just something that hasn't changed. And I think that's something that, differentiates all of us on this call. It's, we put the work first. It's important to us. I like to think of myself as the guardian, right?
You are the guardian.
But I think in a sense, like, we're all the guardian. We all care so much. And it's really enjoyable and I feel proud to, be a part of something that is larger than myself, larger than this group, but extends to the companies that we work with every day.
Yeah.
Gary, I'll give you the last word here, but Miranda, I just think about when you started with us at Clear Channel, and we would have LegalZoom, who was like a key client that changed the course of my career almost 20 years ago now. But they stayed, we had a relationship that went for years and years and years. And your mom made them lasagna because we were our personal lives and our work, it was all kind of one thing, right? And we would host them for a lasagna feast every year. And then
custom music, tablecloths,
the whole
utensils,
thing,
and everything.
the whole thing. And I don't think it ever gets better than that, to just show like nurture and care and concern for the relationships that we're stewarding. You really, and I think your mother was a special person, and I was honored that I got to meet her. And then when she passed, you started making the lasagna. And I think you've been doing that for us the whole time.
Thank you.
You have really nurtured this place. So
yeah.
Second that.
Gary,
I'm so many things, but we've made it this far, and the core is still together. The principles of the business are still the same, and there's so many things. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're like, "Wait, you work with that account?" And they were so hyped up, they couldn't believe it. I'm like, "Yeah, we worked with 100 of these accounts," and it just, to look back and think of what we started, where we are today, what we went through, the resilience that you guys are all talking about, it's remarkable. I don't think this is a very common thing where you have a core group of people that make it this far. And then
I was gonna add, it's not for everybody.
I don't look at it as a job. I enjoy working with you guys, and I love the work that we do. And it, Dan, you said something, because we've worked together for so long, it reduces the pressure. It increases the pressure, I feel like, because I don't want to let everyone down. I feel like I have so much, like because we've been together for so long, that if I don't give 110%, it's like, wait, what? You start to question everything.
Well, it's a different kind of pressure, right? Like, you don't want to, the pressure now is that you don't want to let the team down.
Right.
I meant that more in terms of like letting my guard down with you guys, just walking the line between, the role in the business and the personal relationship. Right. But for sure, like, I totally identify with that. I think a big part of what has made this work, and what makes it work for the people that work alongside us today, is this: you start because, like, I think we all wanted to be a part of the revolution, but I think you stay for the person you're fighting next to, you're shoulder to shoulder with. And like, I think that really is a driver for all of us, is we don't want to let each other down.
Yeah. And I would say that thread that is in the people that work here still today that aren't on this call, it's still there. I was on a call on, I think it was Wednesday, with two people that weren't here in the first year or the second year, at 9:00 at night, working on something kind of small, but it was important, and we had to get it done. We made it happen, 9:00 at night. And doesn't matter. We work until the job's done.
And I think, look, I think we've got a lot of our fingerprint on this industry. I think we have a lot that we can be proud of, whether that is thought leadership or advancements in, just innovating how people do attribution, or, I think I believe we started the post role as an added value opportunity for our clients, right? Or, some of the innovation we've done in smart speakers, or the work that we're doing in brand safety and suitability. Like, I think that we've really made a dent in the industry. And, as I'm looking ahead, I'm thinking about, all right, what do we want to push for 10 years from now? And I think tech is kind of at, like, to me, like, terminal velocity in terms of the rate of change. Like, it almost couldn't move faster than it is right now. And that is going to continue to change everything. And I think our job is to embrace that, but to hold tightly to what we started with. Mm-hmm. And that was relationships with our partners that represent content that we believe in, the people who make the content, the creators, our relationships with each other, and the relationships that we forge between a brand and a creator are maybe the most valuable relationships, that is commercial. And that's never going to be successful, no matter how sophisticated programmatic ad buying is. You can't replace that part. And so, I think in many ways, not everything has changed and everything will continue to change. But what's beautiful is that in many ways, nothing changes. And I think we are a great example of that. This is what lasts. This is what matters. And, look, I guess I'll just say thank you guys for trusting me when you came in and for putting up with me in the process. Thank you for sharing your life's work with me. And it's an honor to be shoulder to shoulder with you guys for 10 years. Should we go another 10 and see what happens?
Heck yes.
Without a doubt. There's no question.
We ride.
I didn't hear Gary say anything. Hold on a minute.
Hold
on. I got 3 yeses here. I need a 4th. What's happening?
Hell yeah.
Okay, thank you.
He's already back on the job. He's got to make sure.
I know he's making cold calls.
We've accomplished so much. We've grown so much. What are you most proud of? If you could pinpoint one or two things, what are you the most proud of?
I do think that the koala core for me, and just the relationships. I think this is the perfect example of the relationships, but so much of my time is just work and email and reviewing documents and things like that. But the parts that matter are the fact that I try to do this discipline with the thank you cards, as and it's a good discipline for me to pay attention to all of the connections that happen in a year. And how durable that is and how valuable it is, and the relationship is permanent, whether it ends well or not. That's the thing that matters, right? On the deathbed, yes, we'll have the war stories, but the laughs and the things that just the trust that I think we share together I think that's the stuff that really counts at the end of all of it. So
I would just say
I'm proud of that.
When I started working here, what really, I don't know, with you, Dan, in particular, you cared about the person. I never experienced that really quite as much as I have here. And it started with the onboarding process. Let's take a personality assessment. What? I never did that. I worked for a company for 11 years and then further on, life coaching. And we had different things like professional development. I didn't do that. I was on my own at the old place for that. And you really invested into the team here. And I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. There's no way. If there's anybody else at the head of this thing, I wouldn't be here. Because you care. You give a crap. And I'm getting a little emotional here just saying it, but that's why I'm here. And I'll do anything for you.
I love you guys.
Love you too, man.
Love you too, man.
I will say,
No
though,
question.
I was upset when you started to exercise with Stu at 6 a.m. because we would eat hot dogs all the time. one of the things that we used to do.
That's why I had the cholesterol problem.
Thank you, Gary, for eating all those hot dogs with him, because those.
But it was
great.
we'd go to Del Taco and order everything on the menu, and it was we have meetings and we're driving to Riverside or to Orange County, but it was more importantly, where are we eating lunch?
That was important, and it still is important.
It is, yes, yeah, of course, but it was just,
and we still get hot dogs when we have something to celebrate, don't we?
Yeah, we do,
especially Gary's birthday.
And I'll say, I mean, that you saying being shoulder to shoulder, it's I can't even. The words are hard to come out, but every single one of you guys, it's I've gathered strength from every single one of you over the years. There's no question, because I can know in the back of my head that Miranda's giving it not just her all, she's giving it my all too. She's giving everybody's all.
Yeah.
So Miranda's out there
always
doing
giving
that.
everybody's all.
Yeah. And Gary's out there doing that. And Kyle is out there doing that. I know I can call any of you guys on any business issue, on any personal issue. And that value that we have growth all the time, everywhere, even when it hurts, the fruit that's on the other side of growth is so incredible. And I mean, Kyle, like you said, I mean, Dan, nobody else at the helm. What you've done for all of us, none of us would be here. I wouldn't be here. Yeah, it is like a pinch to myself. Like, this is my life. This is unbelievable. Think of all the lives lived on this planet. And here we are on this call, 10 years working at a company like this, for a man like this, with the impact that it has. This is your life. Like, you're winning. I'm looking at a bunch of winners, like real winners in the best way you can win in life. I love you guys.
It's a lot of heart on this call. It's a lot of heart. And you know what? Talent's fine. Talent's part of it, but like, everybody's talented. But no, it's the heart. And I think if anybody's still listening at this point, I think they're hearing it.
I think they listen to it at 2.5 speed. It's just going through. It's just hitting and it's fine.
All right. We worked with some good people in the beginning. All the people that helped us out, Maddie and Lex, David, Nina, David Kahn, everyone was so cool. Alan from Rooster Teeth. I remember
they're still cool, Gary. They're still cool.
Yeah, of course they're awesome.
Yeah, he's talking.
Yeah. Remember when people
they're still
cool?
with us?
Yeah, it's the fallen. He's going through the list of the fallen.
But even the thing that
I can call David Kahn right now. He's fine.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if you think about the people that started off their career at Oxford Road we had that mailroom program for a little while, or an assistant or a coordinator that have gone on to do great things.
Oh yeah.
I think that's totally cool too.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the beautiful things is when you look around, you get to see people that have carried what they learned here, and whether, like, if you guys ever leave, I quit. But
you have to drag me out.
Other than that,
drag me out.
but then just getting to see how it compounds and how it spreads, right? And I think it's all about growth. It's always been about growth for the companies that we work with, and believing in them, but then believing in people and each other and facilitating that growth mutually. And you guys have helped me grow, and I think you've helped a lot of people grow, and it's amazing to see how much you've all grown. But listen, with that, I think it's time. We're gonna stay on this love fest, but we're not gonna make everybody listen to it for a long, long time. But thank you guys, and thank you for listening to the Media Roundtable, and special thank you to Bianca, to Haley, to the team at Podcast One, to Jennifer, and to you, Kyle, and to you, Gary, and to you, Stu, and to you, Miranda. And as always, influence responsibly.